17 in estate agency, 18 in surveying, 19 in property development. I knew that to get into the property industry, I had to start at the bottom. Had no experience. I had seen my auntie be successful. It was a woman and she's done really well. Coming into the industry from a young age, I didn't realise how largely male dominated it was. I am my biggest competitor, my own biggest critique. I'm constantly pushing myself to be the best. Yes, I have lots of people watching on social media, but it's a fear of failure, isn't it? And I have to say, that's what I was most worried about, disappointing them. They have always said that I will do anything I put my mind to. Phoebe, you have to succeed. All of these people are looking at you. And it's an ego thing. If you fail, then what are you going to tell everybody? You're just going to disappear?
Welcome to the Property Funding Podcast, the podcast that gives property developers tips on how to save time and money. Delighted today to be joined by a very special guest, Phoebe Isabella Porter. You're very welcome here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And Phoebe is known in the property industry as the young female property developer. And there's so much to unpack in that description, which we'll get into. But first of all, where is home for Phoebe?
So I am based in Cambridgeshire in Norfolk, so I'm surrounded by the countryside.
Very good, very good. So what we're going to do to kick things off,
Okay.
just to get you to relax a bit and chill into it, we're going to do a quick fire round.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Some of it's property related.
Okay.
And some of it's just more about life.
Yeah.
Just so the listeners get a better understanding is who is Phoebe, some of the likes and dislikes and things like that. Okay,
Okay,
so
yeah.
Ready?
Sounds good.
One word answers?
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Favorite food?
Ooh, roast dinner.
Ooh, favorite country?
I don't know, because I really want to go to Dubai, but I haven't been. So my favourite country I've been to, I would say, is Spain at the moment.
Spain,
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Favorite sport, if you have one?
Football, because I've played football. So
I
football.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get a conversation about football as the podcast goes on. Dream car?
I really want a Mustang, but I feel like that if I was to aim higher, it'd be a Lamborghini Urus.
Okay, that sounds good, sounds good. Marmite, like it or hate it?
I like it.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Controversial.
Interesting. Apple or Android?
Apple. Yeah.
One word to describe yourself?
Confident.
Oh, that's a
Yep.
good one. Favorite property type? So apartments versus houses versus
Your
villas.
easy renovation. I'd say easy renovation, detached house.
Detached, okay, brilliant.
Detached, yeah.
And if you could own a property in one location, anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Dubai.
Dubai.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd like to own a property in Dubai.
Good. Okay. Cool. Okay, there's a few ones there to unpack. I like.
I know, quick fire.
Marmite one's going to be good. I think what we're going to talk about doing is, as we build the podcast out, we'll have all the developers and guests who like Marmite and those that don't like Marmite.
Oh, the table.
And then we'll see. So I think we'll end up with more that don't like it than do probably. But okay. So listen, let's get into this. So what we're wanting to really unpack is. Obviously more about you as an individual, but also your journey in property. And the fact that you're young, the fact that you're a female, means you've got an interesting take on what is a massive industry, of course, in the UK. So it's a little bit about early life, sort of schooling, and maybe a bit about your career. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, so I went to high school. I attended sixth form. I dropped out of sixth form a year in to pursue a career in property. So I became a viewer canvasser at age 17. So I did all of the viewings at my local estate agency. I was then promoted to a sales negotiator there. And I've landed my career, obviously, as a property developer in the surveying industry at the moment. But yeah.
Okay. In terms of, well, we'll come back to your education because I want to unpack that a little bit on that. In terms then of what jobs that you had before property, what did you do there, or what was your kind of experience, if you like, before moving into the property world?
Yeah, so I had a job at Pandora, so I was a sales assistant before. I had no experience in the property industry, and I decided a year into sixth form that I wanted to pursue a career in the property industry, and I knew that with little experience or knowledge, I had to have a low barrier to entry job. So I knew that to get into the property industry, I had to start at the bottom. So I went to all of my local estate agents and gave my CV and a covering letter in to say I wanted to join and wanted a job, and I did get on with my local estate agent and they offered me a job as a viewer.
Okay. And what was it about property then? Why?
Yeah.
Why
So
property?
from a young age, I'd always been surrounded by my auntie and uncle being successful in the property industry, and I'd always associated wealth with property from a very young age. So for me, I knew that that property was a long-term wealth building avenue to go down, and I decided I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I mean, I still sort of am working longer hours, but yeah, I didn't want to do that for somebody else.
Okay. And what age were you when you sort of made that decision, had that
17.
You were 17.
Yeah,
Okay.
just turned 17, yeah.
So you were heading school, exams, thinking
Yeah.
about a career in law,
I was, yeah.
specialising in?
I wanted to be a barrister, so I wanted
Okay.
to be in criminology and become a Crown prosecutor.
Criminology.
Yeah.
Okay. That is, it's a pretty big jump from
Crazy.
law, criminology,
Yeah,
and that world
yeah,
to property development.
yeah.
Have you ever thought about like how that?
Oh,
that jump?
definitely. It's, I really enjoy criminology. I love learning about it. I love learning about psychology. But for me, I had the passion in property, and I was so fortunate to find that passion from a young age, to have that direction. So why not take the plunge?
So you're obviously young.
Yeah.
Never asked the lady her age, so I won't ask her age. But people can probably look at your LinkedIn profile, your,
Yeah, they
your
can
Facebook,
see.
and
Yeah,
possibly get that.
I do
But-
advertise it as such.
Let's say that you're not too far over 20.
Yes.
So what's it like to be so young, and yet like have this image of I'm a property developer?
Yeah. It's definitely motivating, and that gives me the motivation to carry on and carry that title, and also to show the younger generation what can be achieved, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then the other side of that, I suppose, equation is not only young, but obviously female. In what is, to be fair, quite a male-dominated industry still. So you've kind of got two things that for some people may be a hurdle, may be a challenge. You seem to embrace that.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely motivates me more to, like you say, it is a very largely male-dominated industry, and it gives me the motivation to change that. And I think the standards are changing, and I'm happy to be a part of the change, and I want to broadcast that.
So is that a driver, or sort of just a consequence of doing it? So it wasn't that you said, what industry can I change?
No,
yeah,
but it
property
definitely
first and foremost,
contributed. Yeah, it definitely contributed, because I think coming into the industry from a young age, I didn't realise how largely male-dominated it was. I definitely didn't realise until I was in the industry, and then that was a driving factor.
And you were surprised by that?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I mean, like I said, I had seen my auntie be successful in the industry, so I knew that she was a face in property, and was a woman, and she's done really well. But yeah, I would say it did surprise me how large.
Okay. And I suppose the $1 million question, really getting into, if you like, your experience. I mean, any negative experiences within that? I mean, in terms of,
Yeah.
okay, male dominated, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a cold house to a woman in the industry. Or have you had some experiences where either because you're a woman or because you're young that you felt have been treated differently than a man would have been treated?
Yeah, I definitely would say so. There's been some contractors and trades that I've dealt with that have overlooked me because I've been a woman, and I think there's the stigma in the industry that women don't know about property renovations. But I mean, other than that, what I would say is when I was a sales negotiator, for example, I was quite young when I joined, and a lot of my colleagues did underestimate me being young. They thought, oh, you know, she's not really interested. It's just a job for her to make money and a salary at the end of the month. So they definitely underestimated me then. And that was a very tricky time for me because I did excel and I did top the leaderboards, and I think that did surprise a lot of my colleagues. So it has been difficult, yes.
Okay. And what was your reaction then to that situation of being overlooked or thinking, you know what, had I been a man, I would have been treated differently, you know, from a feeling point of view or a reaction point of view? How did that impact?
I think that's something that I've grown with. I used to get really angry and I used to think it's not fair. But now I know that my value and worth does shine through. So I know that it does overlook that, but it does give me the driving power to change the industry and then work alongside people that do respect that.
Yeah. Do you find your passion sort of helps you overcome those challenges?
Definitely.
And if you like, gives you the fuel, gives you the motivation to be successful, because in some ways there's perhaps more eyes on you, you know, high profile on social media, which we'll come on to in a minute. And it's almost like there may well be, I'm sure there are people who kind of look and say, okay, you know, it's easy on social media, it's easy to say what I'm going to do.
Oh, of course,
Let's wait and see, does Phoebe actually deliver?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's like fuel for you.
Exactly, and I also am my biggest competitor, my own biggest critique, so I'm constantly pushing myself to be the best. So yes, I have lots of people watching on social media, but also myself. It's a fear of failure, isn't it? So
Now that's interesting, because I do a lot of studying on what makes successful, particularly sporting managers.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about football.
Yes.
So you mentioned football. Which team do you support?
West Ham.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, you went to Cambridge. Yeah, that's fair enough. Any favourite players from present or past?
No, I'm not favouritism.
No, okay.
No
like
favouritism.
Okay. Now I remember watching the FA Cup final. Goodness, I'm guessing now we're talking the early 80s. I might be right in saying 81, 82.
Yeah.
West Ham v Arsenal.
Yeah.
Trevor Brooking scored the winner.
Yeah.
With like a
I've
stooping header.
Yeah.
So yeah, Willie Young for Arsenal got sent off for a professional foul in that game. So that's come back long before you were around in the early 80s. But yeah, so I love studying elite sports people.
Yeah.
What makes them successful.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Matthew Said, who worked with the British Olympic team, has written a number of books. First one was called Bounce. You know, are elite sports people born or made?
Yes, yeah.
And then he's got a second book called Black Box Thinking.
Okay.
So it's fascinating. But interestingly, if you listen to top managers that interviewed and say things aren't going well on for a football team, and the managers, you know, well, do you feel under pressure? Very often the answer is, look, I put myself under more pressure than any fans or board of directors or players.
It's true.
So elite people do, if you like, see themselves in the mirror as their biggest motivator, their biggest critic, their biggest, you know, pressure. And you seem to have that.
Oh, 100%. I think, you know, it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you fail to everybody else. Yes, your ego will be hurt, but ultimately it's about you. So.
And where does that come from, do you think? I mean, did your parents have that similar trait, or other family members?
I mean, my mum has always been the breadwinner in the family, so she's always been a largely confident role model in my life as well as a woman. So that's definitely been helpful. But my mum and dad, you know, they work the 9-to-5 jobs. They've had that. And they've always preached to me and my sister, you can do anything you can put your mind to. That's something that my dad has always said. Anything you put your mind to, Phoebe, you can do it, have no doubt. And I mean, when I went to my mum at 17 years old and said, Mum, I want to drop out of sixth form, I mean, God, they were spending so much money on my train ticket per month. And I have to say, that's what I was most worried about. I was most worried disappointing them, you know, having to say, I'm so sorry, Mum, you've spent all this money for me to travel and I'm now dropping out. But neither of them had no worry in the world, you know. They have always said that I will do anything I put my mind to. So.
Wow. I think that's so important, Phoebe.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, we live in a world where parents almost try and live their life through their children sometimes.
I know, yeah.
For your parents to be so relaxed about your career move, I kind of laugh at times. You know, my parents are, I call them old school.
Yeah.
You know, they're in the mid-70s now. My father was originally a missionary.
Okay.
And then became a minister.
Oh, wow.
But like when I was growing up, on my left was in civil service for a while.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be out doing things.
Yeah.
The thought of sitting in an office the rest of my life was just like, no way. But like he would constantly be going, but it's a career, there's a pension, there's stability. And there was that generation where, you literally got a job and you're in that job the rest of your life, and parents wanted stability for their children. I think it's so refreshing that your mum and dad were like, hey, it's your life.
So eternally great. Yeah,
do what you want to do. And also back you to give you the confidence. Was that something even growing up, they always encourage you to believe in yourself? Is that like just the type of family atmosphere you grew up in?
Definitely. My parents have always been so open as well to all individuals and supportive to anybody, not just even their children. They're such loving parents. So grateful for that. But I mean, I've always been academically bright, so I think in that aspect, my mum and dad have never had any worry because I've always been, I've always got the grades. So for them, that wasn't a worry.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's again. I just think it's so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's so rare.
Definitely.
Usually the story is the opposite.
Yeah, definitely.
Someone wanting to go and do something else, but feeling as if they have to finish a certain career path.
To meet an expectation, definitely.
Yeah. And was there anything in your education that you feel helped you in your career now as a property developer, or was it more sort of irrelevant in many ways?
So when I was studying for my GCSEs, the past 2 years of my high school, I was placed on medical leave because I was having absent seizures, I think they called them at the time. So I was placed on medical leave. So I taught myself the whole curriculum for my GCSEs. I didn't attend school. And I came out with A stars, A's and B's, which I am very proud of.
Sorry, you self-taught yourself on that?
I did.
You at home, got up in the morning.
Yeah.
Did your lessons, reviewed, nobody telling you to do it, no one telling you even you had to do it? You just did it?
Exactly. So that taught me a lot of resilience and discipline from a young age, because I mean, I was 14, 15, and at that point, I wanted to stay in bed and watch TV series or Netflix. So for me, it taught me a lot of discipline.
That's the modern youngster I know.
Yeah. So it definitely taught me a lot of discipline, and I've always liked to learn. I've always liked learning. But, that was my goal. My goal was I'm a high achiever. I wanted to do well. So, yeah, I definitely had the discipline, and it taught me that as well.
Okay. Just wasn't on a personal level. Obviously, I have two boys.
Yeah.
And obviously, relatives with kids growing up, etc.
Yeah.
Mine's 25 and 19 now.
Okay, yeah.
As part of your studies then, so obviously you're academically gifted and you were able to have that self-drive.
Yeah.
What did your life look like, sort of 14, 15, 16, in terms of social media, mobile phones, the digital age versus the hard grind of learning? How did that look?
Yeah, so I when I was really young, when I was about 10 years old, I remember I made some YouTube videos on how to make a loom band bracelet. So I think that was all in. So that was my first taste of social media. And yeah, I mean, I'd always been surrounded by watching YouTube videos. I'm in the generation where social media is very promoted. Yeah. Everyone my age has a phone in their hands. So, but yeah, I think growing up, it was very tough to find the balance, but I did shy away from it when I was younger, I would say, apart from the loom band YouTube videos, which I recently got removed. I think, I would say it was difficult finding the balance because I wasn't like my peers. I did find it hard to be in girl groups because I was so determined to succeed with my grades. So I did find that I did shy away from social media growing up.
Okay, interesting. So moving on then to the actual sort of property journey.
Yes.
Tell me some of the projects that you've completed and the ones that you're working on now.
Yeah, so we've just finished completing a bungalow renovation, which was purchased at auction. That's currently on the market, so I'm hoping that will be selling soon. So that was a recent one. Ongoing, I have a semi-detached property that is currently going through planning to be knocked down. We're just currently in negotiations with the other adjoining semi-landowner to secure that property as well so that we can knock them both down. The plan is to build 2 detached houses. So they've been, the planning has been approved figuratively until we get the second semi agreed. So we're just in negotiations with that at the moment. And yeah, that's to build 2 4 to 6 bed detached houses with a GDV of around 1 million, 1.1 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you run that yourself, a bit of a team. How do you kind of structure that in terms of the?
Yeah, so I am sort of the project manager as such. I do all of the liaising with the planners, with the architect, with the contractors. My partner Brad is an electrician, so that's very handy that he's in the trades industry. His dad's a carpenter, but jack of all trades, so we've saved a lot on labour costs. But that's definitely helped knowing the construction process. So yeah, I do all of the sort of overseeing.
Okay, and no real fear stepping into that first project. Just get at it.
No, because I'm so fortunate to have the mentors around me that provide me the advice and support that I need. But I know that I'm sort of clever enough to manage it properly, and I've got that support around me if I need it. So.
Okay. If I was to ask you your biggest challenge to date in those projects that you've done, what would you?
I would say managing the pipeline and the stages for me. I think it's getting each stage right and making sure the quality of work is up to scratch, and definitely assessing the works and the process of those works. Yeah.
Cool, fantastic. Okay, so let's get a little bit in now to the funding of your projects. Obviously, we're the property funding podcast,
of course,
and you know we kind of want to provide value and show maybe newer developers, sometimes more experienced developers, but particularly newer developers that one of the big things I want to achieve with this is to let people think, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, if Phoebe can do that, if other guests we have on can do that, well, I can do that. So to encourage people. Yeah. So no doubt many developers do have a challenge when it comes to funding. Yeah. So when you came to your first project, how did you fund it?
Yeah.
Maybe in terms of the debt and whether any equity is involved. So let's start with that. What was if you remember the numbers roughly, if you can remember them, and then how did you go about tackling that issue?
So on the bungalow project that I've just finished, so I used some of my own money, but also I got a loan from my mum, which not many people know. So my mum lended me 30,000, and I agreed that on a 10% interest base with her per year. So I was very fortunate that my mum was able to give me that. Obviously, with my social media as well, I do have a lot of investor interest, which is going to be utilised on the detached homes in Friday Bridge. So that's going forward.
So there was no mortgage as such on the first property then?
So there was, yes. So I leveraged a residential mortgage as a first-time buyer. So that was how that was funded and purchased.
Okay, no problem at all. And then in this next project you've done then, obviously slightly bigger.
Yes,
What's your sort of funding model, your capital stack around this
So
one?
it's largely going to be equity, so largely funded by investors. Obviously, there is a higher risk with investors, but we are going to be getting some development finance as well at the bottom.
Okay. And the process for doing that, someone just recommend you to go to a development finance broker, or will you go direct to a lender, or how?
Yes. So I know a couple of brokers in the industry that are really fortunate to give me the advice and to explain the products and what's involved lending wise, what we can get, how it's repaid, etc. Obviously, with development finance, it is more regulated, so you do obviously have the instalments, regular visits on site. So, yes.
And is the plan to do bigger projects, more projects? What's the trajectory like of your business model?
Definitely. So it's to scale the pipeline. I mean, we want to grow the buy-to-let portfolio to make sure we have that monthly passive income. But in terms of the development, we really want to increase the pipeline, get the GDV up, and make it a consistent pipeline with projects as well. But we definitely want to go bigger and larger.
Okay. And do you focus just in the Cambridgeshire area, or do you open up out round? other parts of the UK? Or again, what's your strategy around that?
So I think for me personally at the moment, because I know my area and I'm most confident in my Cambridgeshire area, I do plan to stick in this area for the time being. That's not to say that I'm not going to branch out eventually, because if the opportunity presents itself and the numbers stack, we will look there. But I do think that the Cambridgeshire area is overlooked, because most people think, oh, Cambridge, it must be very expensive. But fortunately for me, I know the countryside areas and I know which areas that we can leverage. So, yeah.
Local knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Comes in very well.
Definitely.
Knowledge is power.
Yes,
when it comes
the gold mine areas.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, so earlier on you mentioned social media.
Yeah.
And the fact you have people maybe approaching you about investing and things like that. So I really want to get into this, the part that social media has played.
Yeah.
In your property journey.
Yeah.
Like the whole concept of what I call the new generation of property developer is like, you're just the poster girl for that in some respects.
Thank you.
Tyler Newman, who is a relative of yours, I call him the poster boy for that.
Thank you.
So you've got this sort of new generation, social media savvy. What was your initial, remember we discussed this before?
Yes.
You did like initial post about property that just seemed to.
Yeah.
So talk us through that.
So I think that post, so the first post I made on LinkedIn was just a selfie of me, and I'd put, I think it was 17 in estate agency, 18 in surveying, 19 in property developing. And that post now has 350,000 views, I think, and that was 2 years ago. And that's what really blew me up in the social media space in property. So
350,000 views of your first LinkedIn post about property.
Yeah.
Like that is impressive.
And I was booked out with calls, I think, for the next 3 to 4 months with people in the industry that, were brokers or could provide me value, investors as well, or people that wanted to hear about my journey or networking events. So it was really fundamental. And the reach that you can get from social media just shows, it's more than you could ever reach in a room full of people. I mean, unless, of course, it was a massive event, but it's free. So why would you not get yourself out there? And it's personal branding, tell everyone that you meet and post it.
Yeah.
So it's so fundamental.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in the past, or heard you mention that that first post was like 2 or 3 football stadiums.
Yeah, I think
Tyler
had said to me, Tyler had said, oh, Phoebe, you know how many Wembley stadiums that can fill? I think it was like 2 to 3. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Which just puts it into perspective, so, yeah.
No, so you've launched, and what's fascinating about social media is at that point you haven't done anything yet.
No.
As in property development, you've obviously got your 2 years. But all of a sudden there's attention, there's now a spotlight, there's now interest.
Yeah.
People are, have linked to you and are now following you.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel kind of like that adds to the pressure that I have to deliver?
Definitely, and I think that's partly kind of why I did it as well, because I think it then gives me that extra added pressure. Phoebe, you have to succeed. All of these people are looking at you. And it's an ego thing. It goes back to an ego thing. If you fail, then what are you going to tell everybody? You're just going to disappear. So, and I don't plan to disappear.
You don't fail in private.
No, exactly.
When you're so high profile on social media.
Yes, that's very true. So,
You're going to fail big.
Exactly, yeah.
So then, was that a deliberate strategy? So was it just kind of, do a LinkedIn post, or had you sat down and thought, right, part of my strategy to become this young female developer and this brand you've created, did you deliberately set out to use social media to gain the right exposure, or was it just like a consequence?
I think definitely to gain the exposure. It was a deliberate post that I made, but I did not realise the reach it was going to obtain. So I think I underestimated the power of social media myself. I knew that I needed to post consistently on social media, that I wanted people to know what I was doing and what my plan is. But I underestimated the reach massively, which then is my driving factor to preach social media and to carry on doing social media.
Okay, so what are your favourite channels then? Or what channels do you have, first of all? What all channels? There's a big debate about what are the best channels. So if you're on LinkedIn.
I am on LinkedIn,
what else? Instagram.
Instagram. And I'm on TikTok as well.
Okay.
And currently diving into Facebook this year.
So not Facebook in the past, really?
No. So I've been very low key on Facebook, but this year I've decided, I'm in lots of property groups on Facebook.
Yes.
But I've decided, no, I'm going to utilise Facebook as well this year. Because that's where most of my local and my friends are really on Facebook, my local network.
So LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. That's your 4 channels really. That's the only ones you do.
Yeah, and I am going to be getting into YouTube as well. So some YouTube videos.
And what's the plan around that? Just as in a education type thing, or just a follow your brand?
Exactly. So just to see, to give updates on what projects we've got ongoing, and also to promote the brand. So to get other, to give insight to other females in the industry.
Okay.
I want to get into the industry.
Excellent. Okay. Where do you think the property industry is going, or is there any limit when you link youth, energy, passion, drive with social media and the exposure you can get literally to hundreds of thousands of people and eventually millions of people? Like, where have you thought about where that could take you in 5 years' time, 10 years' time?
I definitely think there's going to be a fundamental change. I mean, people are now getting educated about property, whereas before it was sort of a very taboo, secretive topic that people just assumed you needed to be really rich and wealthy to know about. So I think there's definitely going to be a fundamental change, and I think for the younger generation, social media is going to play a massive part, and it's becoming interesting now. Property is becoming interesting because we're talking about it, whereas before I don't think there was enough social media content on it, that people just thought, oh, you need lots of money to get into it, I'm not going to learn about it, whereas now it's free education. So but I think there's going to be a fundamental change, and I think lots of women are going to come into the industry as well. So I think that's really good.
I think the TV programs, going back 15, 20 years ago, I think were the ones that really opened up, as you say, what was quite an enclosed group, property developers. Well, it was sort of relatively small amount of numbers, like 4,500 developers in the UK currently, which across the whole population isn't really very many when you think about it. But the TV programs then, kind of brought a bit of notice to it. And then people then selling courses, started to sell courses, learn how to be a property developer, learn how to rent properties and be a landlord. That has then, expanded the reach, if you like.
Definitely.
More people going, I want to get into that. And then you bring in the social media, where all of a sudden then you can reach the masses. That is, I'm quite passionate about crowdfunding. And the whole concept of democratization of property investing is where you have this synergy with social media. You just couldn't do that 30 years ago.
No, definitely not.
TV, radio, taking an ad out in the Financial Times or the Telegraph, you couldn't reach masses. Now you can reach it with a 30-second post.
I know. It's phenomenal, isn't it? It is.
So any takeaways if someone, I know I hate asking this question, it's always a good question. What would the current Phoebe say to the Phoebe who was 17 starting out in property? Anything you would either do differently, or what sort of tips or takeaway would you give your younger self?
So I would say surround yourself with like-minded people. So follow people, whether that's indirectly or directly, who are more successful than you in the industry. So when I say indirectly, I mean follow their content, look at all of their videos, get on YouTube, watch what they do. I've been fortunate enough to follow some people around in the industry for a day, just to see what they do, what's it like.
Any firing names out?
No, just some local builders, property developers to me. Obviously Tyler as well. Seeing what he gets up to.
A good one.
What the industry's like. So I've been very fortunate, and just learn as much knowledge as you can. There's YouTube, there's books, there's podcasts. So learn as much knowledge and utilize it as you can.
What's fascinating about LinkedIn is you can, before you've ever met, it's the first time we've met in the flesh. We've obviously been on Zoom a few times, but LinkedIn gives you a little bit of an insight into the person, especially things that they like, or films and all the rest of it. I was quite intrigued that you follow Tony Robbins.
I do, yes.
And that, again, for someone from my generation who obviously grew up with him,
Yeah.
I still have some of his cassette tapes.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you know even what that is, a
I
cassette tape.
do. Yes.
I've got I think it was his Power of the Mind or his Power, but I've got this, row of cassette tapes at home, long before even sort of DVDs and all come out. So I grew up with him, and to see someone, so younger generation, following him, I think showed your attitude to self-development, and you mentioned there about mentoring. So how much of a part in your success do you think people like Tony Robbins or have played in your success?
They definitely contribute to keep you motivated. I think they help keep the motivation there. They give you a fresh perspective, different ideas. I commit to an hour a day of personal development, whether that's through podcasts, whether that's through YouTube,
Excellent.
whichever form. And that's something that I've made my New Year's resolution is to make sure I do that consistently. So far, I've been doing it every day. But I think it's really important to have that sort of integrated into your mind daily to push the motivation and the drive, because the motivation does go away. It's discipline. So I think that gives you the motivation.
Yeah. No, listen, absolutely spot on. You're like an old head on young shoulders.
I know, I feel it.
You really
I
are.
definitely feel
that whole concept of discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, motivation is temporary.
It is, yeah.
In many respects. It's where success lies in life, business, relationships, sport, whatever the discipline is, or the thing you've chosen to do.
Yeah.
It is in discipline.
Yeah.
The other use of that word. It is the discipline. It is the daily doing the task.
Yeah.
And it's not been always motivated to do the task.
Yeah.
It's just the commitment to do the task. That's where success lies.
Definitely.
And it's the same in property. It comes to, like I was reading it just again this morning. I used to read more than I do now. I definitely like listening to short YouTube clips and things like that. But I was given a book for Christmas about 2 or 3 years ago about success in startup.
Okay.
It turns out it was actually from a local Northern Ireland
Oh.
business person.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until it was like into the first chapter. But he talks about that. He actually had a shredding business where you go to a firm, take their documents and shred it. And they set it up, and the first couple of days, like just no phone calls. And it turned out their answer machine had the wrong setting. So they launched the business and had no phone calls first couple of days.
Yeah.
And so they headed out, and they said they talked to 100 people. Him and his business partner gave out 100 cards, knocked 100 doors day one, and got 2 customers.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, we've got 2 customers.
Yeah.
So out the next day and went, well, if we knock 100 doors, we're going to get 2 customers.
Yeah.
So they just started to go out every day and knock 100 doors. But back to discipline, commitment. That's
definitely.
where it lives. Because
Definitely.
most people would knock 20, get 20 no's and then quit. And when it comes to property, trying to source property,
Yeah.
make phone calls, knock doors,
Yeah.
and then they quit.
Yeah.
This is, Phoebe was just lucky.
Yes,
Phoebe
landed on
just,
her lap. No, I think hearing the no drives me further as well to succeed, because there will be one yes. You've just got to find the one yes. So,
So what's been your biggest disappointment then in property? Has there anything that's kind of made you cry or made you go, oh, what? Have I made the right choice doing this? And any experiences like that?
I think I've tried to take my emotion out of my deals and my projects, because if I know that I've got a really good deal, which has happened before, I've had a really good deal on my table and there's a project that I've really wanted to secure, but for whatever reason the numbers haven't stacked or something's gone wrong, I think that's definitely disappointing. But there are other deals out there, so for me it's been taking the emotion out of it and finding the other deals and projects.
Okay.
Tell me a bit about your history, David.
Yeah, we've never really had a conversation about that, Phoebe. So my background's advertising and marketing primarily, but I got into property in 2000. My wife was actually working in housing management at that point for the Royal British Legion Housing Association. So that's what she did. And it was really a bizarre, almost accident. Literally, I was looking at auctions for cars. So someone was telling me how you can buy cars, stick them in the auction without doing anything to them and make some money.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I thought, well, I wonder, can you do that for properties? And I spoke to a state agency friend who was a young fellow doing his training with a state agent. And I remember ringing him and asking him. And again, this is, come back, say, probably 1998, maybe 99. Yeah. and saying, hey, can you buy and sell property in auctions? Now, that's quite a big thing now.
Of course.
Wasn't back then.
Yeah,
Wasn't back
definitely.
then. And that's how we kind of got into it. He and I set up a company.
Oh,
We
wow.
went to a guy that I knew, kind of a friend of my father's, but I sort of knew him through business.
Yeah.
Managed to persuade him to give us some money.
Yeah.
He was very shrewd. He took 50% of the company
Yeah.
and a nice percentage of interest for the money that he
Wow.
gave the company. So
Yeah.
he did very well out of it.
Yeah.
And off we went, and we
Yeah.
bought 23 properties in 18 months.
Wow.
Sort of low-end buy-to-let properties.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that was
amazing.
but I say I was, what age was I then? 30. So I was like literally 30-year-old before
Wow.
I even had the premonition about being involved in property.
Wow.
A late starter. The time you get to 30, you will be
I hope so.
mega property star.
I definitely hope so.
So since then, I've been actually quite fortunate. I've done
Yeah.
overseas property,
Yeah.
market overseas stuff.
Okay.
And then I've been involved in taking UK stock to Asia
Oh, wow.
through independent property agents.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And marketing that, high-end portfolio building, and then moved into setting up the property crowdfunding
Yes.
platform, which you're aware of.
Yes.
And then that was nearly 4.5 years of that journey, and then we've started this year pivoted that company into the prop funders,
Yeah.
which is supporting developers like you
Yeah.
and other developers
Yeah.
in their sourcing, education, but also their sourcing of debt and equity. So that's kind of a brief
Brief
look at the
overview.
journey.
Yeah.
Are you kind of planning on staying in development locally, or if I would say to you, where do you see yourself in like 10 years time? Have you thought that far out?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the moment, the plan is local, just because I think there are lots of opportunities around us locally that haven't been explored. We're very fortunate that we do have a lot of green land still that can be built on in my area. So I think definitely locally is the plan for now, but that's not to say long term we wouldn't go overseas or we wouldn't look, further afield in the UK. That's not limiting us as such.
Yeah. So say that probably a lot of people around about maybe your age looking at you and seeing what you've done.
Yeah.
They've maybe managed to stretch themselves to get to their first property.
Yes.
Maybe borrowed a bit of money off a family member or had their own savings through work. Mm-hmm. But they probably look at you and go, well, how did you get from the first one on to number 2 and then planning number 3? Like how did you bridge that gap?
Yeah, so obviously there is the refinance method. So you can look to pull out money to put down onto your next one, whether that's a buy-to-let, a refurb for bridging. Otherwise, utilise investors. If you can find investors, utilise investors. There's less, yes, you'll have to pay an interest back, but if you can raise the funds and maybe offer some sort of security, that would be a good way. Bridging finance as well. There's lots of bridging products out there that can also offer you refurb loans as well, alongside the actual finance of the property. So I would say there's lots of options to look at. So bridging would be one, refinance and investors.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And when it comes to private investors, remember FCA regulations, financial promotions, financial advice, collective investment schemes. Make sure you're on the right side of the law when it comes to that. But you're absolutely right. Investors is massive, and this is where I think you link social media in with investors. How do you build a brand? And the brand isn't just about saying, hey, look who I am, look what I've done. The brand allows you to access property investors.
Definitely.
And that is, I think, the real driver of this sort of social media. So I've been a firm believer, where I like crowdfunding, is that if you do build a large brand and you end up with, I'm a firm believer in the modern world is really around tribes and crowds.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's a tribe. You said you're an Apple user. I'm an Android user. But they're tribes.
Yeah.
Effectively, literally we're tribes. Mm-hmm. Now the world's got a smaller place, global village and all of that, but we're still in these many tribes. Mm-hmm. So, what it was fascinating to me about crowdfunding was, can someone use social media to build an investor tribe?
Yeah.
That then can invest into that developer in a compliant way, meeting all the regulations that the FCA have set, and crowdfunding is the only way you can do that.
Yeah.
That's where I just saw this perfect synergy. So you obviously see the investors. Is there anything you do to engage with the investors, or kind of what's the attraction to investors to either follow you or engage with you on social media?
Yeah, so I think there is a misconception around investors, and I think it is a money mindset shift that needs to happen in a lot of people that are looking to obtain investment. I think it's a lot of wealth money mindset that needs to be shifted. There's definitely a misconception on what investors look like. I think a lot of people expect investors to be, rich in suits and at banks, and it's not the case now. And I think you need to be telling everybody what you do, because the word does spread, and it can be high professionals such as doctors, dentists, etc. But I think you just need to be spreading the word and have a good money mindset and shift your perception of what you think investors look like, and get out to networking events as well. Preach what you do, and they will. What's that saying? You attract. Well, what's that saying called? What perception you put out, you attract the energy back. Basically.
Yeah, just law of attraction.
Yeah, law of attraction. Yeah,
So
in simpler terms. Yeah.
So what you're putting out, you're getting to get back.
Yeah,
What you sow,
exactly.
But it's the,
exactly.
So there's a lot of discussion around that when it comes to personal development, about the energy you're putting out and all the rest of it. Interestingly, some people talk about again, depending on people's views on religion. I happen to be religious, but a lot of the personal development people will talk about the universe. And the force. They'll talk about if you put energy out, then the universe will give you energy back, and all of that. But it's a fascinating concept on that. But interesting to what you're talking about there, because my oldest boy Joshua is very much what I call this modern investor you're talking about. So when I was 24, 25, the idea of investing, didn't even enter my vocabulary. Football. Running around with your mates, everything you got up to as a young sort of 23, 24-year-old. My son Joshua has got a couple of apps for investing in the stock market, which I still don't even have to this day, but he's into that. But he's invested in, I think it's about 9 property projects.
Wow. Through
the property crowdfunding platform that I had. And he's using that to build up effectively a deposit for a house.
Yeah.
So it's like
amazing.
He's seeing investing in multiple properties, small amounts of money, starting off at hundreds, then into thousands. But that generation renter are looking at, owning a property and going, how do you ever afford a deposit? House prices are just doing this, and the gap is just getting bigger.
Yeah.
So a lot of young people now are seeing investing as a means, I think. Or you tell me, am I
Definitely.
right or wrong on that?
Yeah, definitely.
You obviously, that's your generation.
Yeah.
Are they worried about a deposit for their first house? Are they happy to live in apartments and rent while they build up a deposit? What would be the thought process of younger generation?
I definitely think there is a high percentage of renters out there that do have the mindset of maybe they could save alongside both. But like you say, there are different avenues now to utilise and raise funds instead to buy property. So I think there needs to be a mindset shift in the industry, which I think is now being changed, and there is the education out there that is, teaching people.
Okay. So sort of coming near the end, in terms of how you organise your day, because one thing about being a property developer is no 2 days are the same, I guess.
Yeah.
You're going to have periods of high intensity, high pressure, deadlines, and then you might have periods where it's like, okay, I'm now planning ahead.
Yeah.
So how do you organise your day? How does Phoebe start a day off?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you do some fitness.
I do, yeah.
So what does a day look like? Just give me an idea.
Yeah, so I swear by my productivity method journal, which was produced by Grace Beverley, and she's a high female entrepreneur in sort of like the fashion.
Grace Beverley.
Yeah, she's in the fashion retail industry, and she's the CEO of Tala. She produced the productivity method book, which I find really useful. I plan my day through that. You can write down your priorities for the day, your tasks for the day, your projects, and you can map it out by time. I do exercise. I make sure to go to the gym every day, so I get in around a 45 to 1 hour workout. I have started running. I'm not a fast runner, but I'm getting there. So I'm doing a 45-minute run midday. That's sort of around lunchtime.
As well as the gym?
As well as the gym.
So the gym in the morning? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think having the work blocks as well. So I have work blocks morning and afternoon that are high intensity work blocks.
Okay.
So that's no phones, no calls, etc. And that's obviously
So
mandatory.
that's really interesting now. So those work blocks, as you call them, how long roughly do they last?
2 to 3 hours. Yeah, 2 to 3 hours. Hard work.
Turn your phone off.
Yeah, hard work. So, I mean, I don't go on my phone, for example, for 30 minutes in the morning. I don't think I even go on it sometimes for an hour in the morning. So I try to have that breakaway. Same routine as well for bed. So I take an hour to 30 minutes off my phone before I go to bed. I'm an early sleeper. Go to bed at about 9 o'clock. So
9 o'clock?
Yes, I do.
For most people, the world's just beginning to get excited.
I
9 o'clock.
know. And I like to read as well to switch my mind off. So.
Yeah, very good, very good. So yeah, that's interesting because the morning routine, I think, is the part that people make mistakes in.
It definitely.
They roll out of bed, straight onto their phone,
Yeah.
social media, emails, whatever,
Yeah.
and then they're heading to the shower with in their mind full of all the things they have to do for the day.
Yeah.
Certainly, probably 5-6 years ago is when I really switched to probably something similar, early riser, but the phone doesn't go on for the first hour and a half. So we up
really
at 6.
Important.
You know, do a bit of reading.
Yeah.
Make a cup of tea, a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
herbal tea, maybe honey and lemon, but just nice hot drink. Do a little bit of fitness. So I'll definitely get outside, no matter what the weather's like. I'll go out and do something. Might just be some press-ups or sit-ups, might be a bike ride, but definitely do something.
Yeah.
Then come back in. The house always feels warmer in the morning after you've been outside.
I know. Well,
really
I've invested in an ice bath, so I've been doing ice baths recently,
you're really into it
I
then.
know. So at the moment, I think I've reached 3 to 4 minutes, but it doesn't get any easier. But the health benefits are
every day?
obviously- Yeah, every day. So
Now that is a conversation and a half. That is
yeah.
a conversation and a half.
Yeah.
Have you come across Andrew Huberman?
No.
All right, I'll send you some stuff on
Yes,
him.
please do.
He's like a neuropsychologist, sort of
Yeah.
scientist guy.
Okay.
Fascinating some of the stuff he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole stuff around ice baths is
Yes.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now I would always turn the shower to cold,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm not an ice bath every single day.
Yeah.
I
It's very cold.
played semi-professional Irish League football.
Oh, okay.
So, but when again back in my day,
Yeah.
that type of stuff wasn't in. But yeah, I'd done it maybe towards the end of the career. It was just coming in.
Yeah.
You know, guys would just had a big drum.
Yeah.
And put ice in it and then just jumped into the
Well,
drum.
there's lots of new, e-commerce brands now that it's accessible to get an ice bath. So, it's affordable as well. It's an investment, a health investment. So.
Yeah, and it is actually quite amazing in terms of what it does. You know.
Definitely.
There's a guy, I can't think of his name now. Oh, you get him on YouTube, Scandinavian guy,
Yes.
like the last Viking.
I think I know. Yeah.
And he jumps off cliffs
I
with
know.
axes into ice water.
Oh, crazy.
You haven't seen that?
No, I don't think I have.
Literally, you look down and he'll have just created a little bit of a hole in the ice,
Oh my god.
and then he'll literally just jump off with the axes and
Oh
you know,
wow.
just like the old school Viking. You know,
I think that might be colder.
It's interesting
than
because for those that say do ice baths or
Yeah.
cold showers or early morning routine of fitness, for so many people in the world who'd look at that and go, "You're crazy, you're mad,"
Yeah.
but they don't understand the benefits.
Yeah.
They don't actually realize that once you get into the habit forming of that, even if it becomes something that you want to do. Not that it's
Definitely.
oh, I have to do this. It's like no, I want to be on my A game today, and I know this is how you do it. No social media, no phones.
Yeah.
Bit of fitness, get the heart rate going. It's common sense.
Yeah. I don't think anyone goes to the gym and feels bad after. Or feels, I mean,
really
yes,
good point.
we
That's
might
a
walk
really
out
good point.
feeling, a bit sick. Maybe we've worked too hard.
Sore.
But yeah, ultimately, we
Yeah.
know that it's to improve our health. It's for the greater good.
Yeah,
So
that's actually a really good point. That,
Yeah.
On the way in is a little bit different than the way back out.
Yeah.
But that is. But I don't
Definitely.
understand. I find it hard for people who don't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Try it for 30 days and then come back and have a conversation with me about it.
Make it a habit. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've done it, then have a view.
Yeah.
But this, and then you see people and, they're not being productive. You know they're struggling with health issues.
Yeah.
And you're like, but why not give it a try?
I think, again, it goes back to discipline because, motivation, like you say, is temporary. It goes back, but it's a discipline mindset.
Yeah.
So,
So you do your journal, you do your block out of your
Yes,
sessions.
yeah.
How do you get away from everything? If you
Yeah.
need time I'll tell you mine in a minute, but let me hear yours first. So
Yeah.
you're under pressure, it's stressful,
Yeah.
you're feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
What do you do just to kind of get away
Get
from
out, go for a walk, get out. I love walking, so I make sure
Okay.
to take my 2 sausage dogs out for a walk.
Two
You
sausage
know, they
dogs.
keep me
What
occupied.
are their names?
Lola and Milo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay,
they
very
keep
good.
me occupied. So go out with them, take them for a walk, you know, get the fresh air into your lungs and clear your headspace. Music as well. Find that distraction just for the 30 minutes. Calm your breathing down. Do your breathing exercises. I like to meditate as well. So meditation I do. So yeah, just find the distraction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, my ultimate chill out is
Yeah.
like solo camping.
Ah,
You know,
yeah.
so I
Yeah, I
did
like
that
that.
actually in, when was that, maybe the back end of the summer.
Oh, wow.
Couple of really big things going on, business thing, and I just,
Yeah.
it was a Thursday, and I just went, you know what, and away I went, just
Yeah.
packed up a tent. I'm still doing some bits and pieces, but just
Yeah.
sat there with a book and a bit of paper and,
Yeah.
and writing and doodling. But
Change your
literally
surroundings.
top of a mountain, sun beaming. It was awesome, like
Yeah.
absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Phoebe, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you
First of
very
all, to meet you in the flesh.
Yeah.
And secondly, to have you here as a guest to the Property Funding Podcast. It's been phenomenal just having a chat to you, understanding the journey. You've packed so much into such a short life. It's absolutely amazing. So it's actually frightening in a good way to think of where you could get to.
Yeah.
You know, if your life is spared and you end up in health
Yes.
on for the decades.
Yeah.
Which of course we wish you well for that. But you could achieve so much. You really can, and you know, wish all the best in that journey. So it's been fantastic. So what any sort of takeaways, young female property developer, what do you want to leave the listeners with some words of wisdom?
Well, thank you very much. But I would say make the content, post the content, and not to worry about what people think. Because I think a lot of the times we're in our heads about, oh, what if they say this? Or what if they think that? And I just think of your ultimate goal. Why are you doing it? And who do you want to be? So that's, you know, stay focused.